Have you ever had one of those mornings when you wake up, grab your phone before you even brush your teeth, open Instagram or TikTok, and within minutes your mood completely shifts? You scroll past a high school friend showing off their brand new Tesla, a college roommate who just bought a house in the suburbs, a coworker posting a romantic proposal on the beaches of Hawaii. And then you look around at yourself, the same small apartment, the same 9-to-5 job, the same bank account that feels empty right after payday. And suddenly that heavy thought slips out. Why am I never enough? That sting, you know it, because every single one of us has been there, comparing, feeling jealous, feeling behind. What most people don't realize is that this silent habit of comparison is stealing our joy, draining our confidence, and eating away at our spirit day after day. But here's the truth. Comparing yourself to others is like running on a treadmill that never stops. No matter how hard you push, you'll never reach the finish line. And the longer you run, the more exhausted you feel. In the next few minutes, I want to share with you a story. An ordinary story, but one powerful enough to shift how you see yourself. I'll also give you one deep insight from psychology, a timeless principle from ancient wisdom, and a simple 7-day challenge. By the end of this video, you'll hold a small but powerful tool. Every time you feel that urge to compare yourself to someone else, you'll be able to smile instead of suffer. And in that smile, you'll discover a new way to live, lighter, freer, and finally, on your own path.
David was the kind of guy you'd call ordinary. He grew up in a small town in Ohio, worked hard enough to get decent grades, and eventually landed a steady job in a mid-sized company. His salary covered rent, groceries, and the occasional night out, but nothing extravagant. Deep down, he believed that if he just kept grinding, things would eventually fall into place. But then came the endless highlight reel of social media. Every time David opened Instagram or LinkedIn, it felt like a punch to the gut. There was Mark, a former classmate, posting about his promotion to senior manager at a Fortune 500 company. There was Rachel, the girl from his English class, showing off her brand new house in the suburbs with a big backyard and 2 golden retrievers. Another friend was flashing photos from Paris, sipping wine at a cafe near the Eiffel Tower. And David? He was still in his cramped, 1-bedroom apartment, eating leftover pizza after another long day at work. At first, he brushed it off as just social media, but over time, it got heavier. One night, he stumbled across a photo of a high school buddy, standing proudly next to a shiny new Tesla. His heart raced, his palms got sweaty, and his face flushed with a mix of envy and shame. He tossed his phone aside, but the thought wouldn't leave. Why am I so far behind? Months later, David went to his college reunion. At the dinner table, the conversation turned quickly to careers, salaries, and relationships. Someone leaned over with a half smile and asked, "So, David, you're still at the same company, huh? When are you going to level up?" The group chuckled lightly, but to David it felt like a knife twisting inside. He forced a laugh, but that night, lying in bed, the laughter replayed in his head like a broken record. His chest felt tight, his breath shallow, and sleep refused to come. Restless, he grabbed his jacket and wandered the quiet streets. That's when he bumped into Ethan, an old friend from high school. Ethan wasn't driving a luxury car or bragging about a high-powered job. He worked as a teacher, lived modestly, and yet his eyes carried a calm brightness David hadn't seen in years. They sat down at a late-night diner, the kind with squeaky booths and bottomless coffee, and David poured out everything. The jealousy, the exhaustion, the constant pressure of measuring up. Ethan listened quietly, then smiled and said, "You know what's funny? I used to compare myself to you. Back in school, I thought you had it all together. Every time you got an award or nailed a project, I felt smaller. I used to lie awake thinking I'd never measure up. And then, one day it hit me. While I was busy comparing myself to you, you were probably busy comparing yourself to someone else. Nobody's really winning this game. It's just an endless loop. David froze, stunned. He had never thought of it that way. The person he envied had once envied him. The people he measured himself against were probably looking over their shoulders at someone else. In that moment, a strange kind of relief washed over him, like dropping a heavy backpack he didn't realize he'd been carrying. The truth was simple, but powerful. The race of comparison had no finish line, and the only way to win was to step off the treadmill altogether.
Psychologists call it the social comparison trap, and it's one of the most natural yet destructive habits of the human mind. Our brains are wired to compare. It's how we survived thousands of years ago. Back in tribal days, if you saw another hunter bringing in more food than you, that comparison motivated you to work harder or risk being left behind. The instinct served us then, but today it plays out in a world of social media, endless metrics, and highlight reels, and instead of helping us survive, it silently poisons our happiness. Studies show that when people scroll through social media, their self-esteem consistently drops, even if nothing in their own life has gotten worse. Why? Because the brain doesn't judge reality in isolation. It judges in relation. If your coworker gets promoted, it doesn't matter that you're still earning a good salary. Your brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone, because suddenly your worth feels smaller. At the same time, a tiny shot of dopamine pushes you to check again, to compare again, to keep scrolling in the hope you'll find something that makes you feel better. It's like a slot machine where every pull leaves you emptier. But here's the catch. Comparison never ends, because there will always be someone richer, smarter, better looking, or more successful in one category or another. You might win in one area. Say, you finally buy that dream car. But the very next moment, someone else will have a bigger house, a fitter body, or a more glamorous vacation. It's a treadmill, and no matter how fast you run, the finish line moves further away. Philosophers throughout history warned us about this. The Stoics in ancient Rome taught that envy is a form of slavery, chaining you to someone else's achievements. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In other words, your poverty isn't in your wallet, it's in your endless comparisons. On the other side of the world, Buddhist teachings echoed the same truth. Suffering comes not from what is, but from our desire for what others seem to have. The lotus doesn't look at the rose and say, "Why am I not red and fragrant?" It simply blooms in its own pond, in its own time, and that is enough. But let's be honest, knowing this doesn't make the feeling vanish overnight. The brain is stubborn, and the urge to measure ourselves is strong. That's why the first step isn't to deny comparison, but to understand it. Every time you feel that sting in your chest when you see someone else's success, pause and recognize what's happening. Your brain just triggered the old survival circuit, the if they win, I lose circuit. But in modern life, their win doesn't mean your loss. Your neighbor buying a Tesla doesn't reduce the value of your car. Your friend's wedding doesn't make your single life meaningless. Their story is their story. Your chapter hasn't even finished. Here's the deeper insight. Comparison is only toxic when it's external, but it can become powerful when it's internal. Instead of comparing yourself to the guy next door, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Did you learn one new thing today? Did you take one small step toward a healthier body, a better relationship, a calmer mind? If yes, you are winning, because the only fair race is the one you run against yourself. Think about professional runners. When they train, their eyes aren't locked on the person in the next lane. They're focused on their own stride, their own rhythm.
If they start staring sideways, they stumble. Life works the same way. The moment you shift your eyes from your lane to someone else's, you trip on your own path. There's also another truth we often forget. Comparison cuts both ways. While you're envying someone's career, someone else might be envying your health, your freedom, your humor, your kindness. I once heard a story about a group of people asked to write their problems on slips of paper, toss them into a basket, and then pick one at random. Everyone who picked up a new problem quickly wanted their own problem back. Why? Because what you see of others is never the whole picture. That friend with the new house may be drowning in debt. The coworker who just got engaged might be battling silent anxiety every night. Social media shows you the highlight reel, not the behind-the-scenes bloopers. And here's where the American ethos of running your own race comes in. In the United States, we love the underdog story, the Rocky Balboa who keeps training even when the odds are stacked against, the small-town kid who chases a dream without caring who's ahead. Those stories inspire us not because the hero outshines everyone else, but because they focus on their own fight, their own growth, their own discipline. That's the heart of it. You're not here to beat everyone else. You're here to become the truest version of yourself. So the next time you feel jealousy creep in, remember this. You're seeing one chapter of someone else's book. You have no idea what came before, and you certainly don't know what comes after. Meanwhile, your book is still being written. Why would you compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20? In the end, the insight is clear. Comparison is a trap with no exit unless you choose to step out. The only victory is to stop playing the game. When you shift your focus inward, on your own growth, your own small wins, your own daily progress, you reclaim your power. That's when life feels lighter, because you're no longer running on someone else's treadmill. You're walking your own path, and for the first time, the ground beneath your feet feels solid.
So what do we actually do with this? Knowing that comparison steals our joy is one thing, but living differently requires practice. The truth is, you can't just flip a switch and never compare again. The habit is too old, too ingrained. What you can do is build new principles, new anchors that keep you steady whenever comparison tries to drag you under. There are 3 principles I want to share. Simple, but powerful if you live them. Principle 1. Compare backward, not sideways. Every time you feel the urge to measure yourself against someone else, pause and ask, am I better than I was yesterday? That's the only fair comparison because it's the only one you control. Maybe yesterday you skipped the gym, but today you walked a mile. Maybe last year you were terrified of speaking in meetings, but today you raised your voice once. That progress counts. It's small, but it's real. And if you keep stacking those small wins, over time, you'll become someone you're proud of without ever looking sideways. Principle 2. Choose your lane, not theirs. Imagine life as a massive highway with thousands of cars. Some are sports cars, some are trucks, some are old beat-up sedans. If you keep swerving into other lanes trying to drive their speed, you'll crash. The key is to know your own lane, the lane that fits your values, your goals, your story. If family matters more to you than climbing the corporate ladder, then stop comparing your paycheck to your neighbor's. If health and peace mean more than fame, then don't envy the influencer with millions of followers. Your lane is yours. Theirs is theirs. When you honor that, the race suddenly feels less frantic. Principle 3. Turn envy into fuel. Instead of saying, I'll never have what they have, reframe it as, what's one thing I can learn from them?
Maybe your friend who's fit isn't a reason to hate your own body, but a chance to ask, what routine of theirs could I adapt for myself? Maybe your coworker's promotion isn't proof of your failure, but evidence that progress is possible in your field, and you can chart your own version of it. Envy, when reframed, becomes energy. These three principles may sound simple, but living them daily creates a subtle shift. Imagine a week where, instead of scrolling and sinking, you checked in with your own progress, reaffirmed your own lane, and used every spark of envy as inspiration. The pressure eases, the self-hate quiets, and in its place you feel momentum. Life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes yours, and that's the only victory that matters.
Knowing the principles is the start, but habits only change when you put them into practice. So here's a simple 7-day challenge that can help you step off the treadmill of comparison and walk back into your own lane. Day 1 and 2, start noticing. Every time you catch yourself comparing, don't judge it, just write it down. Grab a notebook or use the Notes app on your phone. Write one sentence, I felt less than when I saw. Maybe it's your coworker's new car, your friend's engagement ring, or a stranger's vacation photos. The goal isn't to fix it yet, only to become aware of how often it happens and how it feels. Day 3 and 4, shift the mirror. For every comparison you wrote down, add a second line. Compared to me yesterday, here's one way I'm better. It might be tiny. Maybe you cooked a meal instead of ordering takeout. Maybe you walked your dog an extra block. Maybe you finally made that phone call you'd been avoiding. The point is to redirect the comparison inward. Suddenly, the measuring stick isn't someone else's life. It's your own growth, and that changes everything. Day 5 and 6, create one small action. Pick a moment where you felt jealous, and instead of sitting in envy, ask, what's one thing I can do for me? If you envied someone's fitness, commit to a 20-minute walk. If you envied someone's career success, spend 30 minutes updating your resume or learning a new skill. If you envied someone's relationship, take one step to nurture a connection you already have. These actions don't erase envy, but they transform it into forward motion. Day 7, reflect and reset. Read through your notes from the week. Look at the patterns, what triggers you most, what feelings repeat, and what small wins you created in response. Then write yourself a letter, just a few sentences, starting with, I'm proud that I. This seals the practice by turning comparison into awareness, awareness into action, and action into pride. And when you read it, you'll realize something powerful. While you were busy shifting your focus inward, the comparisons lost their grip. This 7-day practice isn't a magic cure, but it's a reset button. It teaches your brain that every time comparison shows up, it can be redirected. Over time, that redirection becomes a reflex. Instead of spiraling into jealousy, you pause, notice, turn it inward, and move forward. And as simple as that sounds, it's exactly how you reclaim your life from the endless scroll of better, richer, prettier. In a week, you'll feel lighter. In a month, stronger. In a year, you'll look back and realize you've built a life that feels like yours, not a copy of anyone else's highlight reel, but a story worth living because it belongs to you.
So here's the truth. Life will never line up in perfect fairness. There will always be people ahead of you in some category, just like there will always be people behind you. But fairness was never the point. The point was never to beat everyone else. It was to walk your own path, to write your own chapter, to bloom in your own season. When you stop running on the treadmill of comparison, something surprising happens. The air feels lighter. The pressure lifts, and for the first time in a long time, you notice the small victories in your own life. The meal you cooked, the friend you called, the progress you made in silence. You realize that your value is never measured by likes, promotions, or possessions, but by the quiet courage to keep becoming a better version of yourself. Remember the story of David and Ethan? That conversation in the diner wasn't just about two old friends catching up. It was about waking up to the fact that while we're busy envying each other, we're all secretly carrying doubts, fears, and insecurities. The finish line we're chasing doesn't exist. The only finish line that matters is the one you create for yourself. So the next time you feel that sting when scrolling your feed, pause and smile. Say to yourself, their story is theirs, mine is mine, and mine is still being written. That shift might feel small, but it's everything. Because in that moment, you're not competing, you're living. If you've stayed with me this far, I want to invite you to do something simple but powerful. Join me on this journey. If you felt yourself in David's story, if you've ever laid awake at night thinking you're behind, then you're not alone. This channel is here to remind you every single week that your story matters, that your growth is enough, and that you don't need to outrun anyone to live a meaningful life. Hit that subscribe button, because every new story we share is one more reminder to step off the treadmill and step back into your own lane. And if you start the 7-day practice we talked about, leave a comment and tell me how it feels, because your journey can inspire someone else who is still trapped in comparison. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be ahead. You only have to be present and keep becoming. That's enough. You are enough.